everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And my co-host today is a comic who, really, pound for pound, gymnasts, I believe, are the hardest working athletes in the world. And I think in, entertainment, pound for pound, the hardest working people in the world are drag queens and comics. So I present to you today one of that class of the hardest working folks in show business. You might have seen him on any number of late night shows. Letterman, Seth Meyers, Last Comic Standing. He's been on Last Comic Standing. Maybe you have listened to his podcasts. There are at least two in the mix. The Faucet and Broccoli and Ice Cream are the two that I'll refer you to here today. He has albums Vegan Mind Meld and the newer one, AKA. Comedy specials out there as well. One on Amazon called Small, Dork, and Handsome, and a new dry bar special called Live from the Universe. We've run through your credits. Myq Kaplan, what else do the people need to know about you before we get going today?
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
A great pleasure to be here. You know, the longer I have done comedy, the more things there are to say and the less time there is to podcast. So I am happy for people to engage with my comedy wherever they find it. If you plug my name in anywhere, I hope that this isn't, overstepping or, getting ahead of ourselves, but I feel seen by that introduction. So,
oh, good. I'm so glad.
The introduction that you read from perhaps a bio that I sent or that you discovered yourself.
This is handwritten in my notes. This is handwritten in the notes.
I love it.
So yeah.
I guess the only thing I'll add that I'm proud of since of this year, my friend Ramin Nazer, who is an amazing artist and comedian, he and I collaborated on a book that is called Heartbrain Art Train, and that came out just a couple months ago and is available through our websites. That is neither here nor there, or it's here and there. It's everywhere.
If it's comedy and it's art and it's in a book, why choose?
100,
just yes and.
100%. Well, so anyway, thank you. Everything that you said, if it had been even just one piece of anything that you had said, Dayenu, it would have been enough. And so thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You're so welcome. And I think going through, I was checking out when I was looking up your podcast and I was reading descriptions for episodes and stuff, I feel like there was very much a tenor in your descriptions of this week we're talking to, it was kind of like friend, comic, someone I'm really excited about. And there felt to me like a shared sense between our podcasting missions, perhaps as individuals, is really celebrating people and the sort of specific humanity of each one of us. And I wondered how you felt about me making that assertion to you.
Thank you, number one, for making the assertion, and number two, for asking me how I felt about it. Yes, I appreciate that you said it. I agree with you. And
okay, good.
Yeah, I do love on my podcast. I mean, I feel like I don't know how else I would do it other than to, invite people that I care about or am interested in learning about, or that I know, sometimes friends that I've known for a long, long time, sometimes a new friend who, or a person that I've never met but has been recommended, be like, oh, I think you would enjoy meeting this, author, activist, politician, somebody who, cares about the same kinds of things that you care about or makes the kind of art that you would be interested in. And so, getting to know, I feel like any human being that wants to, be on, that wants to open up and share of themselves, I'm like, yeah, I would like to, push down on the open button and welcome them in. So I feel like, this is my first experience with your show, and
fantastic. Welcome.
Already, I feel welcome. What if I was I feel heard and felt, and I feel smelled. I feel. I'm
we're getting so close.
I feel moved
right
and
on the tip of it.
Kinesthetically. Yeah, absolutely. in all of these ways. So thank you again. Yes, I feel.
Of course.
I feel that is an apt analogy.
Well, like, speaking of the ways in which we are, connecting to the media,
Yes.
Present in front of us, please tell us a bit about the character that you have brought for us to discuss today.
Sure. The character is Walter Mitty from the, I think, 2013 or so, maybe give or take a year. It's a remake. I haven't seen the original, but the movie is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, featuring Ben Stiller as the titular Walter Mitty.
God, you're noteworthy.
I just live by the ABCs. Adventurous, brave, creative.
That's everything I want in a man. My man. Hey, my man, you still there?
Hey.
What, did you pass out or?
No, I just, zoned out for a second.
Oh, okay. Do you do that a lot?
Normal amount, I guess.
This just in, it is 2013.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Producer Marissa confirming it is a 2013 movie.
Yeah, and I remember, I've enjoyed Ben Stiller movies throughout my life, and many of them ranging from the very silly and absurd to this one is, there is silliness, there is absurdity, and there is also this real grounding of sort of heart and emotional.
Then there's serious lost adult Ben Stiller, just like Greenberg and this, and there's a whole chapter of Ben Stiller's career where he's going through it as a generally a comfortably taken care of adult.
Yes. And so that is, to answer your question, that is the character I have brought for us.
Mm-hmm. And so did you see this when it came out in 2013, or did you come to it later?
That's a great question. I know that at this point, I rewatched it over this past weekend to prepare, and I took a few notes. I'm like, why do I feel this way? And I remember sharing the movie with Rini, my girlfriend, probably over the past several years, and then I don't know if the first time I saw it was on a plane. I don't remember if I saw it in a theater. But it was definitely some years ago. It was sometime between 2013 and 2017 that I saw it. And sometimes there's just art that really makes me feel yes, I am being, I feel cared for by the creator. I feel like Neil Gaiman's books do this for me, that when I'm reading them, I'm not to get too far afield, but I heard that one time Stephen Sondheim, who created the musical A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, when they first brought it out to the people didn't laugh at it, even though it was a comedy. And they assessed that they're maybe they didn't really understand that it was a comedy. So he wrote a new song to open the show called Comedy Tonight. And basically it was hey, everyone, this is comedy. And then after that, everyone was oh, of course, comedy. It's very funny. And they laughed at it, and it was well received. That's my understanding of that story. And so I started at the beginning of some of my shows letting people know, I am weird, and it is under control, and I am...
it is under control. Don't worry. You're in safe hands.
This is all on purpose. And, so I feel whether that's, explicitly stated, I feel some art, implicitly, delivers that message that, sometimes if you go to an open mic and you see a new comedian or a new aspiring comedian, and you're are they in control of their instrument? It can be fun to watch, but you're also oh, are you when I started out, I was more asking jokes than telling jokes. But this is this maybe, and now I'm this, definitely this, and people are really, and I'm oh no, I'm not sure. Great question.
Yeah, don't take my word for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always a balancing act, but this is all to say, I feel this movie also delivered that comforting feel. Sometimes, you can read a book or see a piece of art or, watch a movie and be I got it. I don't need to see it again. But obviously the best, the most resonant ones you can watch over and over, and they're like a song, as opposed to a joke that depends on surprise, that you can watch and watch for the feelings that it delivers. And so To answer your question, yes, I don't remember exactly when I watched it for the first time.
What do you see?
This photo cluster, these three, they're the only printable ones. He took them around the same time he took 25. They could give us a clue to where Sean is. Blow them up, all right?
Cool.
You know, when you first really started feeling yourself connecting with the character, was it like Office Walter, where he was like quiet and sort of like an expert at his very specific and isolated job, or like a man wanting more, or a man who felt like he hadn't done enough? Like, where was your entry point for Walter? Or perhaps the man who is punching sharks and diving out of helicopters over Scandinavian Nordic seas?
Great question. So I think zooming out, like the answer will ultimately be all of it, but the path of his life in this, in this 2-hour movie, like sort of mimics the path of my life over the course of, like 2 decades, where I was shy, I was introverted, I liked girls and didn't know how to talk to them. So like, I feel like, Walter in the beginning, when he was just kind of quiet and kept to himself and had a crush on this woman at his work, and he like tries to reach out to her, and like she like waves and says hello, and he's like, hey, and then a woman behind him is the person that she's actually talking to.
Yeah, her work friend is behind him. Sorry. Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
how was your weekend?
I had an awesome weekend.
I feel like that almost 100% has happened to me. And, living in a world of imagination as I don't know that I would like literally like zone out exactly the way that he was and like, freeze, and people around him would be like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? But I absolutely, like, on my own when I was younger, I, as a child would like, have these like, vast fantasy expanses of world in my head where I would like become other characters, become like, superheroes, become, these active, like, I remember like being in a swimming pool and being, imagining that I could fly and that I, had, I don't know, like I could spin really fast and create a tornado effect around me that then would be like a laboratory on the inside of it, like a TARDIS kind of situation,
Sure, yeah.
And so definitely seeing, his having like what seemed like, a regular, like boring life, and then having a vast fantasy world inside his head. That was that absolutely, like when I was like 12 or 13, my family moved and I had to start over at a new school, and it took me, and I was at that point, like I'd never had to like actively try to meet people, like just the kids that I grew up with were just there and they were my friends. And now,
God, 13 going to a new school is a tough age.
It was 8th grade. So, I mean, it was the one that I had. And so I definitely, like, I didn't think of it as, bad. Like I was just like, well, I'm here and I'm kind of alone. I don't have any siblings. My parents eventually, like a couple years later, got divorced as well. So that was another kind of, upheaval and move. But I was like, I went to a summer camp that was sort of like a nice grounding experience that every summer for 2 months, that was kind of like, an imaginary playland where everybody else was also, these sort of like weirdos and, perhaps misfits in their school life that then, we're all weird misfit shaped things that can fit together here every summer. And then that eventually like helped me, I feel like in a similar way. I feel like summer camp was the equivalent of like Walter's taking action and eventually like starting, because I mean in the movie like he is responsible for this photo and he can't find it, and he's like, well, this is very important for his job and also for the art, for his connection with this artist who the artist Sean, the photographer, who is was everything, seemed to be living a life that Walter could have only dreamed of in the beginning, like traveling to, distant lands and meeting with warlords and photographing, snow leopards, the ghost cat, and,
the ghost cat.
Like being off the grid and like, just this, this sort of ethereal, magical being. And Walter's like, I work in an office.
Standing on the top of biplanes flying into volcano pyroclastic flows.
Exactly.
Heard rumblings life's done, man. I want to say thanks. Take a look inside. A gift for all the years of hard work. Sorry about the neg roll. I spilled some blood on it while self-stitching a gun wound to my abdomen, but number 25 is my best ever. The quintessence of life, I think. I trust you'll get it where it needs to go. You always do.
And so I feel like maybe there was a guy at my summer camp, a friend of mine named Ari, who like when we were 13 that summer, he just sort of like took an interest in me and was like, hey, like hang out with me and let's like make up these games and let's play and here I have a bunch of friends and like here, come into this world. And that was
people like that are special.
It was life-changing. And I mean, he also is like the first person whose guitar I ever played, and then that is what led me to like want to play the guitar, which led me to wanting to be a singer-songwriter, which led me to doing comedy. Like without this kid, without this guy, he's still a friend to this day and he's a wonderful person. And
oh, that's so wonderful.
And it's so funny because he's also like, he's a lawyer, and and I'm like, but he's so funny. I'm like, you could be a comedian, you could do all the things, but at the time he like represented I was like, hey, thank you for inviting me, into this world of like all these cool kids, these cool summer camp, compassionate, artsy weirdos. And he was like, well, you're cool. Thanks for being, thanks for wanting to hang out with me and us. And it's such, that's such a beautiful thing when it's like, neither of us are doing each other a favor, or we're both doing each other favors. That's like what. Here's a quick aside. My friend Gus, who is like one of my best friends, is a practicing Buddhist. And so I've been learning a lot about Buddhism. And one of the things that's true in Buddhism is that pretty much everything that exists, it comes into existence via causes and conditions. Like something that exists now was caused by a thing a moment ago, or a year ago. Like we were caused by our parents, among other things. Like, or like a clay pot is caused by there being clay, and then also there being a potter. Like there's different causes and conditions. And usually causes and conditions, it's that a cause precedes its effect. Like, that in time, chronologically, the cause happens and then later the effect happens, like whether it's a moment later or a year later or whatever it is. But he mentioned at one point in passing that a cause could be like simultaneously, like chronologically at the same time as its effect. And I was like, can you describe what's an example of that? And I think the example he gave was, imagine like two playing cards that are like leaning up against each other in like a pyramid kind of shape, like, and imagine that they're holding each other up, so they are each one card is the cause of the other card being able to be held up, and this card is the cause of the other one. And I feel like that's like a wonderful metaphor for like the way I feel like that friendship worked, and perhaps all friendship or all relationships, that we're all potentially uplifting each other. Like I put Rini on a pedestal, she puts me on a pedestal. I'm like, hey, who's at the bottom? Who's holding, like we're both, it's all up, And so I feel like, to me, perhaps, Ari represents Sean, the photographer in the movie, who was like Walter's inroad to adventure, to, being invited or, welcomed into or onto this journey of self-discovery, which, it's such a funny thing that, ultimately, without spoiling anything, the answer, as it so often ends up being, is like, oh, it was inside you the whole time. You had the power to click your heels together, and there it was. Or like, do you know the concept of chop wood, carry water?
This feels like I have heard this adage said to me, but please elaborate.
It's another, I think, Buddhist or Buddhist-related thing. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And like the idea being like, let's say you start doing comedy and you're like, how do I do comedy? And you're like, well, you get on stage, you write and you perform, and like, what else? And like, that's it. And then eventually, 10 years in, you're like, oh yeah, I think I know what I'm doing now. I am more enlightened about my process of doing comedy than I was when I started. What do I do now? Write and perform, the same step. So I feel like, Walter like ends up in like, geographically the same place that he started at the beginning. And also he, at the end of the movie, his job situation is different, perhaps quote unquote worse. And yet, like he's gone on this, emotional journey of growth. And I feel like for me, like I do still sometimes go back to the summer camp and do like stand-up workshops there for these kids.
Oh, cool.
But at the time when I was a teenager, I became a counselor, a junior counselor, a counselor, and I was there for like, 10, 15 years. And there was a time when I never imagined that I would be able to like leave the place, that I would ever want to not return. And but I had
this is not part of the plot of Theater Camp that just came out this year with Ben Platt and Molly Gordon.
Very excited to see it. And here's a cool thing that I feel like my whole life has essentially like finding comedy, being able to create, comedy art for a living. Like my life has become summer camp, like it used to be just 2 months a year, but now I'm like, oh yeah, it's all summer camp. It's all, obviously you have to pay your taxes and, send emails and other admin. But I feel like the same way now that like Walter, he went on all these adventures and now he might never do that again. He might travel the world repeatedly, but also now like,
he might have got his entire eHarmony bio together in one 24-hour period.
Yes. And now not even needing it by the end of the movie, because he's there. I feel like the adventure is now in him at the end, I feel like another part that like specifically resonated was I love Adam Scott's villain in this movie. Like,
God, he's just built for that. Like I came on, I saw him, I was like, this is just a part that you were destined to be, this kind of character.
And it's so interesting because he also like he's such a good actor and he's in so many different things and he's so often like the nice guy, in Parks and Rec. He's a nice guy, he's a hero in, Severance, like he is. There's nuance, but he's such a good bully. Like when Walter's just holding a cake and he's like, "What do you do, cake man?"
Ted Hendricks, managing director of The Transition.
Hey, Tim Naughton, sales.
Gary Manheim, graphic design.
And what do you do, cake man?
Oh, I do the cakes just for today. I'm not a cake man. I do I deal directly with Life's photo units to manage
Sorry,
negative.
I was really getting into the song. I stopped listening to you.
And at one point, he's just, Walter is like frozen in a daydream, and he's like, "Are you the Tin Man?" And like that specifically resonated with me because like one of the ways in which I have been called like robotic, or
sure,
like stiff in similar ways. And so I'm like, yeah, like obviously we're all like, if you're human, you're human. There's emotions, there's things happening, whether you move around a lot or not. There's a lot of stuff moving around on the inside, but like eventually, like seeing, it was very cathartic at the end when Walter has gotten to a place where he doesn't need to put up with that guy's guff anymore, and he can just be like, kind of offer like compassionately like, hey,
do you know our motto?
Life. I'm loving it.
That's McDonald's. This thing that you do, Ted, where you come into a place and you push people out, you should know that those people worked really hard to build this magazine. They believed in the motto. And I get it, you got your marching orders and you have to do what you have to do. But you don't have to be such a dick. Put that on a plaque and hang it at your next job.
Essentially, like Adam Scott's character is like a high school bully who is a grown-up but is still a high school bully, and Walter at the beginning is like the prey for this bully, but then he grows so much that he's just like emotionally bigger at the end. You know, he grows. He's a grown-up, and that was resonant in ways where, you know, for when I was in high school, the fear that I had of people who were like picking on me like loomed very large. And then eventually, you know, finding my people at summer camp and then going to college and then finding comedy and like becoming an adult where, you know, hopefully I'm very fortunate. I don't have to like work at an office where there are people that can treat you that way and you have to stay there for the money. Like the worst thing that happens is somebody comes up to me after a show and they're like, I didn't like it. And I'm like, well, then have a good day and let's never talk again.
Yeah, see you never. All right, let's part ways as not friends then.
Yeah, so I really love, you know, that he kept meticulous notes. Walter kept like, you know, in his checkbook, even for like...
Yeah, in his checkbook.
For like the fantastical things that he was doing, like flight to Iceland or Greenland or, you know, and...
Yeah, there's all these little things for like $60, $40, flight to Greenland, $2,780 or something like that.
And so I also resonate greatly with, for my comedy, for my jokes, I keep meticulous notes. I have a digital recorder that I record ideas into. When it's full, I put them into a physical notebook. I write them out. When the notebook is full, I type them into a computer. I keep track of things. I keep records. I archive emails and make note of them. And like when an anniversary of an email that was nice comes up, it'll pop up in my inbox and I'll be like, oh, this is nice. Maybe I'll reach back out to the friend that I was communicating with a year ago and be like, look at this. This was a year ago. And I also feel like there's maybe a larger analogy to, like, in my adult life, I have enjoyed and found meaning from various psychedelics and like mushrooms or ayahuasca. And a thing that's very important in like doing psychedelics, I think, if you want to, you know, have a meaningful, purposeful, like, you know, enjoyable or, you know, whatever, a good experience, they talk about set and setting, you know, because essentially you're going to potentially lose control. You don't know what's going to happen mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So you want to, you know, have in place, you're like, who am I going to be with? Where am I going to be? Like, do I have...
This sounds exactly like Walter's, flights of fancy into his own imagination.
Yeah, and so I feel like similarly, you know, his checkbook represents, he's like, this is the organization, and so like the control that you have over which, and he's like, all right, now a flight, you know, to Europe, now a flight to Asia, and just, you know, getting out of the comfort zone or expanding the comfort zone in a way that, you know, you do your best. I think, you know, everywhere in life we do our best to, you know, make it so that we know what's going on, we prepare as much as we can, we have everything in order, and then we're like, all right, now let's see what happens when I eat this thing or drink this thing or fly to this place to try to find this photographer.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'll ask Myq about his own biggest Walter Mitty-esque adventures. And then you will have one quick thing about the latest from writer and director Emerald Fennell, and I'm extremely excited about it. So let's chat about it at the end of the show.
Throughout history, sirens have captured men's attention, enticed men with their feminine wiles, and fulfilled men's primal needs. The sirens' allure persists.
They have not. Unless the primal need is, I need to be smashed on the rocks.
Yeah, smash me.
Smash me, mommy.
Smash me, mama.
Smash me, mommy.
The sirens' allure.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Strand me, baby. Strand
me, baby.
So yeah, listen to My Brother and Me from Maximum Fun on Mondays. It's just like that. Just like that, but more, it's just like that, but more of it. There's just more of that.
The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom,
Diablo 4,
Final Fantasy 16,
Street Fighter 6,
Baldur's Gate 3,
Starfield,
Spider-Man 2,
Master Detective Archives Raincoat for Nintendo Switch? No, is that just me?
It's a huge time for video games.
You need somebody to tell you what's good, what's not so good, and what's amazing.
I'm Jason Schreier.
I'm Maddie Myers.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton. We're the hosts of Triple Click, a video game podcast for anyone who likes games.
Find us at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.
Welcome back to Feeling Seen. I'm here with comedian Myq Kaplan, who's feeling seen by Walter Mitty in 2013's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Ben Stiller plays Walter, a reserved office worker who daydreams about big adventures. And as the movie goes on, he begins to make his travel fantasies real.
I jumped out of a helicopter yesterday into the ocean and had a shark fight.
Listen, I was mentioning before, people who daydream too much, they're not content.
No, it was real. It really did.
Really? Then I'll put down Adrenaline Junkie. What kind of a shark? Was it like a...
Hey, Todd. I can't really talk right now. I'm on my way to a volcano.
What the...
What has sort of in your own, maturation through your life, what have you found is your personal pursuit of adventure?
Sure.
If you have had one in your own life.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I feel maybe a few different things. I feel like getting into comedy was maybe the first version of that.
That sure sounds like one.
Yeah, like if to continue the analogy, that if my summer camp experience was like his daydreaming, or like the first, I feel like, because it kind of was a dream, and my dream was that was where I first wanted to become a singer-songwriter. And I played at talent shows or in college at the coffee house on campus. And, I played songs that were like fun songs, funny songs that I'd written just with my friends. And I was like, man, wouldn't this would be an amazing experience to be able to have this be quote unquote my job, my living, my career. And so I feel like it seemed like a dream, and then I was like, well, what can I do to try and make this dream be the reality? I mean, and it kind of already was the reality in as much as it was, but I also imagined that I might have to get, a job in a building, in a cube,
yes.
which I did.
The constant thing that freelance and gig workers always think, I might have to get a job in a cube that I go to every day. Maybe? Is this going to work?
And so, when I was in grad school, that was another way of extending my, I was like, okay, well, I'm not getting a real job yet. I'm just, I lived as a resident assistant for many years at Boston University. I got a job. I studied linguistics. I got a job in basically the linguistics department of a technology company, which was cool. It was a job. It was fun, but it was a job. And when I was able to support myself from comedy, I was like, thank you for the job. And now I will not do it anymore.
Yes.
Yes. And I also, I worked selling coffee at the Barnes & Noble Cafe, proudly serving Starbucks coffee, but not a Starbucks, which was always fun to tell people when they tried to pay with a Starbucks gift card. Anyway, we're serving their coffee, but we are proudly refusing their gift cards. And proudly. I feel it felt really good. There was not a lot of power in that position. I had to take it where I could. And so I feel like, I did the equivalent of, the working a job while dreaming of adventure, and then, going to open mics and eventually building a comedy career, and slowly turning, the dream unit by dream unit into reality, to the point where eventually people were like, I will pay you money. Now comedy is your job. And I was like, well, this is
outstanding.
An even bigger dream. So I feel like that is one way. That is the first answer that springs to mind of seeking to have the adventure be, coming from inside the life. And psychedelics, absolutely another version of that. I feel like if that's the first one is the external version of it, be like, let me try to exist in the world outside of myself in a way that that feels good and comfortable and creative and exciting. And then I feel like psychedelics is that, but inward, and
Yeah.
and I feel also, so many things. Like my relationship with Rini, I feel like is another culmination of like kind of the way that, when I was in my 20s and when I was working a job, and I also had, sort of society's idea of like, I want to get married. That seems like the thing. Like I enjoyed dating people. I enjoyed relationships. I got married when I was 25, and
Okay.
and I stopped doing that when I was 28, and I wish her the best. But I felt like I was doing, what I thought I was, in part, what I thought I was supposed to do.
Really, yeah.
And, because what I'd learned from obviously like fairy tales, songs, pop culture, media.
Literally everything we are immersed in growing up as like, at least pre-Gen Z. Everything we were immersed in growing up.
Yeah, it's so great that now there's loads of, fractured media options that tell you, oh, you can live, you don't have to be monogamous, you don't have to be straight, you don't have to be cisgender. You can be like, there's lots of ways to be. How are you? What way?
Yeah.
What way? What way are you?
How are you?
Here's a lot of options now. It used to be there was like 3 options, and now there's like 18 options, and you're like, what if I don't fit any of them? Oh yeah, you can make your own major of life as well. I got married I was like, that seemed to be the thing, one of the not many options. And I truly, like, in a chop wood, carry water kind of way, like I, was polyamorous identified and open relationship guy for, for maybe like a decade or so. And yeah, they're about like almost. And because I was like, oh yeah, because when I got out of my marriage, I was like, monogamy, not for me,
Right, yeah.
And ultimately, it's so funny. I think it's funny that sometimes, on the flip side, if people try an open relationship and it doesn't work, then people are like, yeah, open relationships, they don't work. And you're like, no, but it's just,
well, you kind of, what could you have expected?
yeah. And they're like, but you don't hear about all the ones that are just quietly succeeding, you hear about them when they blow up in the news. But I did the reverse. I was like, I had one monogamous marriage, and I was like, I don't know if monogamy is workable, And
yeah.
But now I am in a monogamous, wonderful, loving relationship that I came to, after all of these paths. Like I was kind of, in some ways, seeking adventure in that way. Like the not wanting to be monogamous. I'm like, one person forever. Like, oh God, that on the face of it sounds boring. How could I do that? I need novelty. I need excitement. I need adventure. I need newness. So what I need is the possibility of many people. Obviously, what could one person be? And, now I've met this one person and I'm like, oh, this person, like, I could talk about her for hours and I'm excited that we continue to both obviously like grow and evolve and learn and change. And like she contains multitudes and I contain multitudes. And we, like it's not just as simple as like, you can read a new book and then you have a new thing to talk about. But I mean, there is that. And just, and I can be, a word that I've come up with for myself, or perhaps others have as well, polyplatonic, I'm like the same kind of energy, like by which I have historically been like, I want to meet a lot of new people. I want to get to know a lot of new people. I want to, like right now, I feel like, I hope that this isn't overstepping as well, but it seems to me, I'm like, oh, you and I, like this is our first conversation.
Sure,
and I'm like, it seems like, I think we're friends now. It seems like this is like new friendship energy,
Oh yeah, and and when I like that, the notion of like polyplatonic, as soon as you said it, was like, wow, this just really resonates with me, because that feels very similar to how I want to sort of in my way be constantly falling in love with like new people in my life. And for me, that doesn't mean like I'm not going to be trying to date those people, but I will pour myself into them sort of with like the fervor and commitment of pursuing like a crush or someone that like you first started dating, because I'm like, isn't it so great that we've met each other and now we get to keep each other in our lives? And I want to do that forever.
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, a thing that I like to think about, I had this safe when I was growing up, and I still have it. This like tiny, you know, like it could fit very few things in it. Just this little safe, like 5 inches by 4 inches, you know, and it had a spinny combination lock, and you spun it to the combination and you push down a button and then it popped open. And then the combination was only one number. It was like such a simple safe.
Wow.
So if you knew the number was 15, that's the number that you need to spin it to open my safe.
Congratulations.
But also, you don't even need to know the number. If you know that it's this kind of safe, you can just hold down the open button and then spin the dial. And when it gets to the combination number, because it's only one number, it pops open. And so I think about
user-friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like to think of myself and like my heart, so to speak, in that way, that like that I for the most part, I do my best to walk around my life with like the open button held down.
Same.
And then sometimes you meet another person who is doing that, and you're like, oh, like we've both unlocked the safe of knowing each other. And now like I have, you know, so many like good friends that I've, you know, it's so interesting. I hear like in the literature, in the cultural conversation, that it's hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah, that's like the saying goes. It's hard to make friends as an adult.
And I think that, I mean, I don't want to, you know, invalidate anybody's experience. I'm sure that for many people, they do have difficulty making friends as an adult. And I think that perhaps, I mean, I don't want to say that it's because I'm a comedian or because I'm, you know, an artist or because I do the job that I do what I do because I am how I am and how I want to be. And because I want to be open and I want to meet other people who are open to meeting and befriending and getting to know and exploring and learning and adventuring, you know, emotionally and, you know, in all the ways that people want to. And, you know, like as a comedian, you know, I want to reach all the people who would like me, you know, and as a human, I feel the same way.
Like you're in the business of finding the people who would like you.
And like I remember, I had a very specific experience when I was married. I had a valuable experience where I was married monogamously, and I was doing a show, and there was a couple women there at the show early, and I was just like chatting with them as they were seated, and I was just like joking around with no agenda, you know, like when I was single, I would have had an agenda of being like, oh, I want to be attractive to these women, I want to flirt with them, I want to impress them, I want to be funny in a way that they like. And so in ways I would, you know, maybe not be my full just natural, you know, genuine self. Like, you know, I wouldn't be lying to them, but I'd be like I'd be performing.
Yeah.
But I remember, because it wasn't the show yet, I was just like talking with them honestly, and I was joking around in a natural way. And I remember of the three women, one of them was like laughing at all the things that I thought that were funny, and two of them were kind of like, they weren't laughing. And so I was like, and I was like, well, I don't, and that just really resonated with me, that I was like, oh, if I'm in a dating situation, if I want to be dating, I want to attract the people who are naturally attracted to the way that I am regular. I don't want to heighten it and then later have them be like, wait, where'd that guy go?
Yeah, give them a crushing disappointment. And it's like, well, I guess I really only have myself to blame for that one.
and not even myself, my fake self that I made up.
I have this version of myself to blame for that.
Who's that guy? Sorry. But
I don't like him that much either.
But truly, and that's the way that I do comedy as well, is like I want to not that I don't think about the audience's experience, but I think about, I'm like, who am I? What do I want to say? What do I have to offer? And then hopefully attract the people to the show and to the comedy that resonate with that want that. In any event, there's one other thing from the movie that I just wanted to.
Yes, please.
So Walter works at Life magazine, which is really, I mean, I feel like the People's Improv Theater in New York, there was a backstage a sign up that said, for people who are going on stage to do an improv scene, probably, but I like it in life, that said, assume that everything's on purpose and everyone's a genius.
Okay.
And I why not, be generous in that way. And so like in the movie, I'm like, it never even really occurred to me. I'm like, the magazine he works at is Life, and that is by design. They chose that, and like because the whole movie is about life, like not the magazine, but also life. And that, I mean, obviously that's why the magazine called itself that as well. I'm sure I never read Life magazine much,
Yeah.
but I was like, oh yeah. And so the motto of Life magazine as portrayed in the movie.
I like the motto company. Do you know it? To see the world.
Things dangerous to come to.
Yeah.
To see behind walls. I got this from Sean.
He gave this to you?
Yeah.
I like that. To draw closer.
It ended with like, to find each other and to feel, that is the purpose of life. And that was just, I'm like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
duh. Like, I mean, like, thank you. Like, of course, please. It's just so simple and so beautiful and so meaningful. And that was like what Walter cared about. Like he did his job, like the cog in the wheel that he was, like to help the art get out there into the world, like so that people could see it, could feel it, could connect with each other, could feel seen. And I like that. I mean, that's my goal as a comedian and a human being and a podcaster and a podcast guest or co-host is, to connect with people, to find out what people's superpowers are, to find out what makes them uniquely themselves, what excites them, what they're into. Like if I share a conversation with someone who, has a particular characteristic or disorder or disability or special interest, and then people are listening and, they're like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, to let people know that, like, obviously we can divide ourselves into political tribes or into, religions. And I mean, and obviously like cultural heritage is meaningful and valuable, and wherever whatever words and ideas and concepts like resonate with you, it's cool. And it's nice to know that everyone, there's all the options are out there. And also, even if you don't see yourself out there, you're in there and you can be like, well, this is me. And then maybe then you say this is me. And then somebody else is like, oh, that's me too. Like,
yeah. That's sort of my way of it over here with like my queerness and such, is just like, well, I'm just going to say this kind of as often as it makes sense, because I found that it's an under-discussed thing enough to where I get enough feedback that's like, wait, that's an option? That it's like, well, I guess I really should keep saying this so people just know they've got the choice if they want it.
Yeah, one time a photographer friend of mine was like working on a book of like comedians that he photographed. And I remember I ended up self-publishing it. And I remember he was like pitching it to like, or organizations, publishing houses. And one of the things they said is like, they were like, we've never seen anything like this before. And so like, we don't know like how it would do in the market, but he was like, you've never seen anything like this before. Like, isn't that good? Don't you?
Isn't that the point?
And, I remember Josh Gondelman, a dear friend.
I never met the guy, but seems like the nicest man you can ever hope to come across.
You should get him on here. I'm sure you would become fast friends as well. I remember he tweeted something once that was like, if you want, here's like the steps to make to sell a successful movie. Step 1, was it already a movie? Great. And yeah, was it not? That might not work. And there's a quote I like from a poet named Robert Haas. Repetition makes us feel secure. Variation makes us feel free. And those are both valuable. Like, they're both important. It's important. It's valuable sometimes to feel secure, and it's valuable other times to feel free. Too much security and you're trapped. Yeah. Too much freedom and you're groundless. You need both of these. And I feel like that's another like let's figure out how to support ourselves and then like try a lot of new, exciting, adventurous things. So it's nice that people like for identity can be like, oh, there's one. That could be me. Yeah. Oh, I'm like a reboot of that identity. But then you're like, for every once in a while when somebody's like, I've never even heard of that identity. Isn't that cool? Well, that's an original. That's beautiful. Like, it's cool that people are coming up with new, more and more, like the words will never do it. What is me? What is me in this moment right now? And you're like, well, okay, it's a guy. I'm a guy. I'm a comedian.
I'm a guy?
Yeah, I'm a thing. I'm a noun. I'm a lot of stuff. But like, you can never say all the things that you are. But it's nice to start.
You know what? I think that's the bow on the package is you can never say all the things that you are, but it's a nice place to start. And that is, I think, kind of how I hope like a part of this conversations always go is like, listen, this character can't be the totality of the thing that I am, but it's a nice place to start.
Yeah.
And so, Myq, thank you for giving us such a nice place to start with getting to know you on this podcast.
Thank you. I had such a wonderful time. You were a wonderful host. Thank you so much. And I don't just mean that because you let me talk for a long, long time, but it's not because of that. But I loved it. I'm happy to know you and to be friends and you are hereby officially invited to be on my podcast so we can continue.
Fantastic. Let's do
I'll
it.
let you talk a lot. And
right.
Yeah.
There was recently a great pod swap. I was on Cameron Esposito's and she was on mine, and I'll keep this train going for sure.
I love it. I mean, it's a wonderful, a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much to Myq Kaplan, new friend Myq Kaplan. Mike's podcast is Broccoli and Ice Cream. His book is called Heart, Brain, Art Train, and we will put a link in the show notes to his website, myqkaplan.com, where you can find links to all of his comedy. And the one quick thing before I go, Emerald Fennell, writer-director, she's got a new movie on the way, and it is a Lucky Chap production yet again, with Margot Robbie, I believe, acting as the big man behind the curtain. She's got an Oscar in hand, and now she is giving us, from what I understand, erotic, debauched thrills. One might say an erotic thriller. It is, first of all, it stars Barry Keoghan and Jacob Elordi. So you can guess the weird intensity factor is going to be pretty high already. And based on the teaser that has been released, it looks like Barry Keoghan's character, who attends Oxford and is not as moneyed as some of the students around him, really connects with Jacob Elordi's character, Felix, who is very moneyed and who hails from an estate, a manor, a castle, a palace. I don't know what you want to call it, but it looks expansive and opulent, called Saltburn. And when summer comes around and Oliver doesn't really have a place to go, like so many of the students do, Felix invites him to come spend the summer at Saltburn. And then in the trailer, we see rich people getting up to what rich people do in movies that are about the travails of excess and sex and drugs and money and all of that coming together in what seems to be like a kind of, probably for our dear Barry Keoghan, a brain-breaking exercise in seeing how the other half lives. Who knows if his sanity will survive? Who knows if someone's gonna die? It kind of looks like a place where someone's not gonna make it out alive. And you have, this movie also features, within the trailer at least, God, I hope it makes it to the final film, Rosamund Pike's character saying that she has an absolute horror of ugliness, and she always has in her life. And I don't know, an erotic thriller seeming film made by the woman with the aesthetic and obviously the ideas of Promising Young Woman, featuring kind of constant MVP Rosamund and cool girl icon, obviously Rosamund Pike, delivering a line about her horrors, the horrors of ugliness. This looks like one of those movies that is made specifically for me. And I am so excited for it to come out. It looks like it's a November release date. Happy Thanksgiving. I feel blessed already. And I look forward to us all finding out together what goes on behind the walls and doors of Saltburn. One tweet did say that, like, in the reviews coming out of its early festival premieres, that I think it was Academy voters will be polarized by Barry Keoghan's naked dancing and bathtub slurping. So it sounds like those are two details we can look forward to. That's enough for me. I'm this voter. If I was a voter, I'm not a voter. If I was a voter, I would be, I guess, firmly polarized into the camp of fuck yeah, Barry Keoghan, naked dancing and bathtub slurping. So can't wait for Saltburn from Emerald Fennell. And that, what a note to go out on. That is our show. You can follow us on Twitter at FeelingScenePod or send us an email at feelingscene@MaximumFun.org. If you want to follow me, I'm JorkCrew on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported directly by you.